I mean, it's like every damn day you got to wake up and go to the next level. And like, I think that is it's like another one of those snowball effects. It's like a self-propelling thing. Eventually you just become so good at living in this state of constant discomfort. That's all you want to be in. I don't want to be in this like safe environment where everything's, you know, the same and it's comfortable and I'm content. That's not how I want to live. It's like I want to be constantly pushing myself, doing harder and more difficult things, mentally and physically and, you know, emotionally and spiritually and every aspect of my life.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to It's the Bearded Man podcast with your favorite, the world's favorite bearded man, Bob Bay. Today's special guest on the podcast, straight from Rochester, New York. He dropped out of college at UCLA when he was months away from graduating college to start a business. He's the co-founder of Tenzo Tea, the greatest matcha drink you will ever put your lips on. It's Bearded Man approved. And I believe he may or may not be on a first-name basis with Jeff Bezos. We'll find out at some point during this episode. Today on the podcast, CEO of Tenzo Tea, Steve Odell.
What is going on, Bobby?
How we doing?
Amazing, dude. Good to be here. I love the intro. It's beautiful.
Always bringing lots of energy. Got to set the bar high and got to make the guests feel good. As I'm excited to have you here today, man.
Yeah, you killed it. I've been a big fan of the pod and, very excited to chat.
You know, I think there's a lot of people that I come across and I'm like, at some point, this person needs to come onto the podcast. And you have always been one of those guys where I see you from afar. You're somebody that I would easily tip my hat and say, this guy is dialed in. And that's something that I like greatly respect when you come across and you meet people that are just passionate about what they do. They kind of just have a vision for that thing that they want to do. And they're pretty much blinders on day in, day out, just trying to build or trying to get 1% better, closer to the goal of whatever they're working towards. And without a doubt, Steve, I see it in you and I respect it. Even a couple weeks ago, I know we had that trip going out to Joshua Tree and you're just like, yo, can't make it, gotta go. And you like dipped out of the group chat. And honestly, I was like, I kind of respect this guy even more. Like he knows what he needs to do for himself. He's not afraid to say no to things. And I kind of loved it, to be honest with you. And I wanted you to be there, but I also was like, I kind of respect this guy's hustle a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, I appreciate that, I mean, there's priorities. So I love hanging out with friends. Yeah. Obviously, I love you and the boys too, so it's making that time's important. But, when you got big goals, sometimes you got to put other things on the back burner and go get it.
Yeah. I mean, if there's anything I've learned in chasing dreams, sacrifices, they have to come.
That is the key.
I'm going to have you just take that mic a little bit closer to you. Yep. I just want to make sure that, perfect. I want to make sure you sound crispy and sounding clear. Good. So, dropped out of college. I think, were you 3 months away from graduating at this point? It was like spring break-ish going into senior year.
March.
So March, that is crazy. I mean, we're talking months away from graduating UCLA. So you drop out to start Tenzo Tea. Your parents don't support it at first. How do you find this confidence in yourself to follow your heart and actually jump ship and go all in on this? At the time, it's just an idea. Yeah. It's not in a story yet. It's not really probably anything except this concept. How do you find that confidence within you to do that?
Well, it's one of my core values, and when I was in college, I did this really unique I think it's a very unique thing, which is I was trying to figure out who the heck am I? Like, who is Steve Odell? And it was inspired by a few friends and a few books. And one of them is a Nietzsche book called Thus Spoke Zarathustra, and talks about defining your own values. And that's a core, philosophy of the book. And then there's another book called The Alchemist.
That's a great book.
Yeah, and, it's all about following your heart. And so once I defined my values, I knew where my heart lied, and then, I just went for it. And so it was those two things. Plus, I really believed in myself. And I thought that dropping out would tell a great story and it would turn the heat up. There's another great analogy that one of our friends, BC, likes to say, which is burn the ships. We're not going back. We're here to stay. And, it's like I wanted to put everything on the line because I thought it would make me stronger and I thought I would be able to live up to the challenge.
Yeah. And going into UCLA, you were a history major, I believe.
Yeah, history major.
So if I had asked you freshman year of college, day one, Steve, when you graduate college, what are you doing with the rest of your life? What would you have said?
Playing professional volleyball.
Wow. So it was all in on volleyball at that time.
Yeah, history was like, the major at UCLA where you could do the least amount of work and get by.
Okay, so I hate to say it, but we're a lot of athletes history majors.
Yeah, oh yeah, tons of them.
Okay, so that's, I mean, the burn your ships type concept, type mentality, you just got to go for it. There's no... literally, it's like you burn the chips and there's no going back. There's no, retracing your steps at that point. This is the only option you have is but to move forward with the concept and the idea.
Exactly.
And at that time, you and Robbie Page are already friends?
Yeah, really, really close friends.
Okay.
I mean,
because you guys had grown up together.
Yeah, Robbie and I met Rob when I was 12 and he was 14 at his first ever volleyball practice. So brought him onto the court and, then we were friends ever since. I went on my official visit at UCLA, stayed with Rob in his dorm, slept on the floor.
Wow.
And then eventually went there.
Wow. When I was doing some of the research for this podcast I love this, on your LinkedIn bio, it said, Tenzo is the Tesla of drinks, which I was like, that is a bold statement and I love it. Why should people be putting down their cup of coffee and making this Tenzo tea? What's the big difference? I personally have switched ever since living here with Robbie. Kid you not, this is not a promo for Tenzo Tea. This isn't a paid placement. I switched over and I drink coffee probably once or twice a week. I drink Tenzo 2 times a day. The coffee tends to be like on the weekends or like a treat for myself, but I've switched. I'm curious to hear your thoughts and feedback as to why people should be making a effort to maybe put down the cup of coffee and instead make themselves a Tenzo.
Yeah, well, a few reasons. It's essentially all the benefits of coffee without the side effects. So you still get that, nice energy boost that everybody wants, helps them get through the day, but there's no crash. So coffee's like a roller coaster where you go up and then you come down, and then it can also upset your stomach. It gives you the jitters. A lot of people feel anxious when they drink coffee or too much caffeine. And so matcha is a much more level, focused energy that lasts a bit longer. And then it has the highest amount of antioxidants per gram of any edible food or beverage. So antioxidants help a ton of things in your body, brain, heart health, everything.
You were the one that found the matcha though, right? Was that
Yep.
kind of how, I know you and Robbie came together and co-founded together, but I think you were really the core one that had found what matcha was. Is that right?
Exactly. It was really simple. Like one day I drank 5 cold brews and that's kind of a lot.
Probably not good for your heart.
Yeah. So, I was my heart is racing. I was like literally shaking at my computer. Thought I was going to vomit. And I literally just Googled what's the healthiest form of energy and found matcha and bought some, tried it out. And it was like you couldn't get it at your local cafe then. It was basically nowhere.
So this is like what, 2015, 2016?
2016, yeah, later in the year.
And nobody had matcha. Like you couldn't go to a local Starbucks or a local coffee shop?
No, Starbucks wasn't selling it. It wasn't in a single cafe.
Wow. You try it, you make it. Is it immediate? You are like, this is a great product or...
Yeah, so we were trying it out. I mean, product development is kind of one thing, but the essence of matcha was really, really powerful and kind of the history of it because it's, people have been drinking it for like 1,000 years. And there's this great concept called the Lindy effect, which is coined by one of my favorite philosophers, Nassim Taleb. And the Lindy effect basically says how long things have been around for in the past is an indication of how long they'll be around for in the future. And it's, it's a very overlooked topic, but it's, it's pretty dead on. So I figured if people have already been drinking matcha for thousands of years, it's very small, typically in Asian countries right now. As the world globalizes, there's a great chance that it's going to stick with people, in North America and around the world.
So you've seen the benefits, and then that's when you kind of realize if I can't find it, now I'm guessing you're tasting it, you're trying it, you're seeing the benefits, then you're looking around and you're like, wow, I can't get it at Starbucks, can't get it at this local grocery store. There's a need for it. There's got to be a market for it. And then that's when I'm guessing you guys came together to then start it.
Exactly. And I would say we were a little uncertain about the market when we first started, but optimistic that a great startup kind of builds the market for the product.
what better city to probably start something that's health conscious and in that area than Los Angeles too.
Oh yeah, baby, you can ride the bus of opportunity every minute.
So you don't want to go back to Rochester to start this bad boy?
No, it wouldn't have been possible. I'm a big believer in, you got to put yourself in the right spots to be successful. Like, you can manufacture luck to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And being in LA, I forget who coined this analogy, but it's the bus stop analogy. Like, in Rochester, the opportunity bus comes once a year. In LA, it's every 5 minutes. I'm bumping into you or BC or the Yes Boys. It's like anytime I go out, I'm like, meeting someone. Yeah,
it's, as the internet obviously continues to grow and continues to change the way we communicate and do things, it's efficient. We can do things at a much faster speed, but there is something about being in the right place at the right time. And even just knowing, like, living on the West Side, anywhere I go, I have the chance to bump into somebody that I'm inspired by or somebody that I know, and you can't get that through online. Like, even seeing the shift in, I started doing more remote podcasts now for efficiency and given the pandemic, and it allowed me to obviously reach out to people that aren't in LA anymore. I was like, oh, this is great. But there's still something about being in the cities where the opportunities are. And, I love that analogy of like the bus stop, because the opportunities I hear, they're all day long.
They're crazy.
You just have to throw yourself in the right place, find the right people, be ready for the opportunity. Versus if I was still doing this podcast in my hometown, I just wouldn't be making the connections that I am, and it wouldn't be to the level of what I want to create at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly, man. Put yourself out there. Yeah. That's one of the big reasons we're in LA. It's the epicenter of culture globally.
Yeah, people talk about, well, why do you want to spend so much money living there? It doesn't cost a fortune. So yeah, but look at what's happening. What's coming out of LA? What
I know.
Like, this
Movies
is where the
and music and business, everything.
This is where the pot is being stirred, baby. We stir the pot here, and then everything else gets served across the country. So
exactly.
It's like, I want to be where all the action is.
I mean, Rochester's like, the fashion in Rochester is probably like 6 years behind LA. You just watch it. Like, I wear these pants, these like jumper pants that we're both wearing right now.
Yeah.
You wear them home, and my brothers are like, "Is that a woman's pant you're wearing?" I'm like, "No, we're just 5 or 6 years ahead of you guys."
I knew I was in the wrong city when I was living post college. I lived 1 year in Boston, and when I'd go out at night, if these few times that I would, because I was in the process of building the podcast, I was driving Uber full time, and I'd look, and I don't judge people based on the way they dress or they look, but I realized, like, wow, everybody, at least males, were kind of dressed similarly, like button ups and like, their jeans or whatever, which I had gone through that phase at one point in my life, but then I was like looking at myself, I'm like, I'm literally so LA, like the longer tees, like like a baggier shirt on top, like tighter jeans. I was like, man, I got to get to LA ASAP. I just knew this wasn't, I knew Boston wasn't the right fit for me. When I was looking at your Instagram, I loved, there was a photo that you had posted back in February of 2020, and it was of Kobe. But the caption really resonated with me, and I didn't pull the whole caption, but I pulled bits and parts of it where it said, you had wrote, I want to build the best and be the best. No distractions, no waste, solitude, work, impact. I'm building the empire. I'm logging in the hours in the gym, and I'm getting better. Do you feel like this type of passion for Tenzo has been out the gate, or has this been kind of a build that, as you've stuck with this journey over the years, the passion inside you for it has only grown?
Well, I think it's it's one part Tenzo and one part, my innate ambition. I call it like my restless ambition. But, before Tenzo, I wanted to do 3 things. And I realized this in college too. So I wanted to invest in things that compound. That's the overarching lesson. Those 3 things were knowledge, network, and assets. So I wanted to learn as much as possible. I wanted to meet the best people in the world and surround myself with other people doing the same thing. And then I wanted to build up, assets, network, like literal financial assets. And the bottom line is that investing in things that compound, you reap a lot of rewards over a very long period of time. And the overarching goal of the compounding is to make as much of an impact as possible. And you can impact a lot of people just in one-to-one relations by saying hi or smiling at a stranger, calling your parents and telling them you love them. Those are all like one-to-one impacts. But I also want to make impacts at scale. So while I do smile at strangers and call my parents a lot, I also want to have, the network, the assets, and the knowledge and skills really to be able to impact the world at large. So Tenzo, well, I love matcha, obviously, and I love the product. I fully believe in it, and it helps people, drink healthier energy and feel better. It's really, in some part, it's a positioning aspect for me to go to the next level and the next level and the next one.
It's your vehicle.
It's a vehicle, exactly.
It's the thing that allows you to do the things you genuinely want to do inside, but at that scale.
Yep.
Do you feel like because volleyball was such a huge part of your life, I mean, to get to any level of D1 is in of itself a huge accomplishment. I think just from my knowledge of volleyball from Robbie and understanding that UCLA is arguably probably one of the best.
Number one, baby.
So the number one volleyball program in the country, which you played at, clearly there to get to that level is discipline, relentlessness. I mean, hard work, grit. I mean, literally so do you feel like all the lessons that you learned through volleyball was then just applied into this business and concept?
Totally. I mean, just being super frank, I was never the most athletic guy.
Yeah, but D1, but even then, even if you weren't the most athletic guy, to reach a D1 level sport in of itself is a major accomplishment.
Yeah, but I was obsessed. I was a obsessive freak
of volleyball.
I worked really hard. I mean, I would listen to Mano, the song "My Bandana," for hours at night and set the ball to myself and do ridiculous stuff. And I would sit in class in high school and draw courts and run plays, on my notebook. So when it came game time, it was like, you're running one thing, but I'm 10 steps ahead of you. I already know what's going to happen.
Wow. What was it about it that you love so much?
I don't know. I mean, I loved the sport. I was good at it too, and just being good. And I think I was from a family, so I'm the youngest of 5 boys, and 4 of my older brothers, they all played in college.
Volleyball too?
Yeah. And so it was kind of like that.
Big boys.
Yeah. It was like being the youngest brother, you always want to outperform your older bros.
Yeah.
And then through that, I learned these lessons of what it takes to be great. It takes focus and time and persistence and discipline. And a passion really to get through it all.
Yeah. Yeah. I would imagine growing up with 4 older brothers, man, that definitely probably shapes you and teaches you to grow up quicker and build more grit within you. And it probably shapes your mentality so much different.
Totally. I mean, I think I got this really, looking back on it, I didn't notice at the time. I think I got this weird complex of an inferiority complex, which is my older brothers were the closest ones 10 years in age. So it's
wow,
I never won at home. We're an athletic family, a pretty smart family. We'd always be competing. And that was the essence of everything.
Yeah. And
I always lost, whether it's bowling or basketball or volleyball or, even just board games, I would never win.
Yeah.
I didn't realize at the time, I just thought man, why can't I win these games?
Wow.
But conversely, when I was playing volleyball against kids my age or, in school, I was ahead because I had my older brothers and they taught me, they helped me with math and, I played so many sports with them. It was when I go and play against another 10-year-old, I'm going to
it's easy. Yeah. It's easy.
Yeah.
You're playing against the best of the best and now you're going out playing kids your age. You're this is nothing. This is a walk in the park. I can do this all day long.
Yep.
Wow. Outside looking in, though, you and Robbie seem like you're the perfect co-founder balance. I feel like you both balance each other in every way possible.
Yeah.
In what ways do you guys balance each other out?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, in the beginning, when we didn't really know what we were doing, I'd say the balance wasn't really there, and we were just kind of throwing darts, for lack of a better term. And over time, we have grown into a very good relationship. I'm kind of the gas, and Rob is the brake. And I'm
slow down, Steve.
Yeah,
slow it down.
So I'm trying new things, and I'm pushing the metal as far as we can. And Rob is helping me rein that in and get focus, and completing some of the models that we need to do. But Yeah, no, we're super good right now. Honestly, we've never been operating better. And a big learning experience was just like learning how to communicate. And when we first started entrepreneurship, like Rob and I would just like, we'd get in these debates that we like couldn't resolve. And then there would be like this fire of like, you know, like you're like yelling at each other.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen at all anymore. And even in the beginning, there was no like unresolved tension. Like we'd always move on quickly, and that was a big key to success in the early days. But now it's like we can pretty much talk through like every single thing without any problems.
Is it easy for you? Is it easier for you now to compartmentalize when it's like it's business time and then it's like time to have like life? Like I think back a couple weeks ago, we all went out and grabbed beers, and I don't think you guys once brought up anything Tenzo related. And I was like, well, it's like, yeah, maybe you guys did. I don't vaguely remember. But do you guys feel like you know when's like the right time to talk about business, and then when it's like, let's just wait until next week or something like that?
Yeah, totally. We're way better at that now.
Yeah.
I mean, we went through 3 years of like every single second was Tenzo every single day. Like,
Yeah.
You know, and Rob and I live together too. So it's like you wake up, you talking Tenzo, you plan the days out, and you go to lunch and you're saying what just happened. And then you go to dinner and you're talking Tenzo. And then you got, you know, you're watching Netflix or people on their computers and you're talking Tenzo.
Yeah.
It's never ending.
So was it better to then not live together so that you guys could have that space probably?
Yeah, that was a good level up too. And I do think that living together is like, you know, being really close and intimate in the beginning when you're building something is, you know, very important.
Yeah.
So you need to share lessons and, you know, learnings and all that good stuff, you know, and, but then it becomes like, as the company matures, it's like, you don't necessarily need to be like that close. And like kind of the lessons have been ironed out and the mistakes and errors are, you know, getting massaged through and you're getting better.
Yeah. Yeah. Then you guys both know what you need to do and kind of do, you know,
go and do it.
Go do it.
Yeah.
We'll, you know, touch base in a couple days or when we need to catch each other up on what's the status. But other than that, like, you know, the plan.
Exactly.
Go execute on it.
We have systems too. It's like we know how to handle cash. We know how to handle inventory. We know how to grow sales. You know, we know how to do marketing. It's like we're not just, you know, making it up. But in the beginning, when you don't know anything,
you're just throwing ideas at the wall and seeing what sticks.
We should do this. You know, but you get a lot better. So, you know, I'm grateful to have a really good co-founder relationship.
Yeah.
Of someone who's supportive through my mistakes, you know, but also doesn't let me make too many mistakes.
Yeah. Ever since living with Robbie, obviously I've been able to kind of get a better pulse on like things happening in real time with Tenzo because I'm like the soundboard who'll you know, update me on like some things that are happening without getting into like the true details of it all. But one thing that he always speaks so like strongly about with you is that when it comes to raising money, or if there's ever a time that you guys need to get money from investors, he's like, Steve just knows, like he just knows how to raise money, which to me is just an incredible skill set. What have you found is the trick when asking people for their money to invest in not only Tenzo, but really also in who you are? How do you do that? And how do you make people feel compelled like they should be investing in your idea, your concepts?
Yeah, well, to give a little backstory, you know, when I first of all, shout out Rob for that awesome compliment.
You said, and it's not just one time; it's been multiple times. Anytime cash flow comes out, he's like, "Steve's got it. He knows what he's doing." Like,
yeah. So no, the first time we tried to raise money, I called and I'd never raised money, you know, before. I called one of my uncles and I was like, "Hey, Uncle Bill, can I have $10,000?" He's like, "No. What company doesn't make any money? You guys are burning. You have $0 in the bank. Like, why would I give you any money?" It's like, all right. You know, and
I love that. Just say, "Can I get 10 grand now?" Cool, thanks.
Yeah, and I was like, I went to Rob. I was like, "Rob, I can't raise any money." And then, you know, I went through this really difficult maze of how do I get money. And I learned that, you know, there's people that invest at certain, you know, metrics, and they have guideposts for when they invest, and you know, and how does that align with your current company? And yeah, you know, I started reaching out to a lot of people, and I built a network of people that, you know, have money that they want to invest in startups that they believe in. And I started building rapport and trust. And, you know, there are some situations where, like, if you need $100,000 or $1 million, like, you can just call someone and get it real quick. But most of the times, like, you're going to need a relationship that's been built up for a while. And, you know, it gets a lot easier as you grow because you say, "Hey, I'm building a matcha empire." And when you're really, really small, no one believes that. When you're taking the company from literally nothing to a few $100,000 to $1 million to a few million and beyond, then there's this, oh my gosh, look, maybe they are building a matcha empire. Maybe I should invest with them. This guy told me 3 years ago he was building a matcha empire, and look what they've done. So you start to build up this kind of snowball effect, and eventually it gets to the point where there's constantly people asking if they can give you money. So that's kind of the point that we're at now. It's like in the beginning, you're on this other side, and you get to the end, and you're like, oh man, like who wants to get in? Like, oh, I only have I'm raising $100,000, and 5 people are like, yeah, it's done immediately.
Yeah. So it's clear what you just said is it's relationship building. And I know when you first got here, you made the comment about the recent solo pod I did, which was just talking about networking.
Yep.
How do you approach building relationships? How have you been able to plant seeds and actually see some of these relationships grow into these types of relationships where it's like, if you need money, you call them, like, yeah, no questions asked. Like, I trust you. I know you have credibility and you're loyal to everything I've ever needed. And how have you gone about building that?
Well, I think at a very simple level, it's just like how you treat your friends. You're reliable, you're trustworthy, you do what you say you're going to do. You're kind and nice. And that's like part one. And that's like 80% of the battle, and then part two is I'm super disciplined about it. I have a database that I track of people, and it's got hundreds of names in it now, people that I know on a first name basis, and I'll reach out to them, and I'll send, a bunch of texts or emails a week. And if I haven't talked to someone in 6 months or a year, I'll send them a follow-up, say, hey, Bob, thinking of you. Hope all is well. Let me know if there's anything you need. And super simple things like that, but it really shows that, like, hey, like, I'm in your mind.
Wow.
And, yeah, just being top of mind for a lot of people at a lot of times.
Wow. What is that? So that database, is it just like an Excel sheet where you're just tracking like contacts and people that you've met and like truly like the last time you spoke to them?
Yeah.
Wow. Where did you get that idea from?
I don't know. It might have been my own idea. I can't think of a source.
Wow. That's pretty remarkable.
But yeah, I use Airtable, and it's super easy.
Wow. I've gone about it in a similar approach. I don't have like something to track it, but I weirdly just like kind of have a very good intuition and feel for when I had like certain people that I met through podcasting, especially just like what that relationship looks like. Like that's somebody that has been on the podcast. There really hasn't been anything ever since. That's somebody that like every couple weeks or couple months they're chiming in. I'm rooting on for them. They're rooting on for me. It's like a two-way street.
Yeah.
But it's very internal, but it's also very calculated where I go out of my way to help these people when I see, oh, I can help this person. Like, let me step in and offer this value. And not in the hopes that like, all right, so then next week I'm going to be able to hit them up and they're going to hook me up with, introducing me to somebody. But it's just like that good feeling of just like, giving good vibrations to the world and knowing that it's going to come back to me at some point down the line.
Totally. Yeah. And that's the key. It's like, you don't want to be Machiavellian about it. It's like, you're here to help. And the network is like, it's not just me like waiting for them to be like, oh, now I need money. And then it's like, it's there. It's like, it's a two-way street, and you gotta, put in the work to help people. Seriously.
Yeah.
And like one of the simplest things you can do is literally just text a founder or someone who's building like, hey, how can I help? That's the most precious thing. And, and I've been really fortunate to have some good people that text me that too. And I'm like, yo, I'm struggling with this. And they're like, well, here's this. And, it's like, oh my gosh, like you just opened a whole new world.
Would you rather somebody text you, how can I help? Or would you rather them say like, hey, I am an expert in X, Y, and Z. Do you need any help within that area? Because it's almost like when I hear like, for instance, I'll hear like Gary Vee go on a rant. He's like, I have so many people DMing me saying like they want to work for me for free. Or like they'll do anything to work for me. It's like, okay, I don't know anything about you. I don't know what you do. Come to me instead and tell me exactly what you do and show me how you can be of value, and then I'll make the decision.
Right. Yeah. So I think when it's a cold outreach and you don't have a prior relationship, it's definitely better to, tell like, hey, like, I'm really good at this. Like if you need help with video or, with Instagram Reels or TikTok, like I got you. I will blow you up, Gary. But when Gary's talking with like Tony Robbins or someone, it's like he knows what Tony's good at, and Tony says, Gary, how can I help? They got that connect.
Totally. Okay. So it's definitely case by case, and it's very much if the relationship's already established versus if you're trying to get your foot in the door, then it's like, tell them exactly what you're good at, and then
Yeah, in one sentence or less, like
Yeah.
a few words.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. What's one of the greatest lessons that you've learned with building a team? I know there was at one point you guys, I think, had 8 people. You had like an office, and then I think you guys have scaled back quite a bit. How has that process been of, knowing when to hire somebody, when to maybe not, when to maybe outsource it? Like, that's a whole can of worms. Yeah,
it's a big can of worms. I mean, I would say that when we grew to 8 employees really quickly, that was, all really good people. I love them all. Still friends with everyone. It was probably too early. It was premature. And, we didn't understand the financial implications of that as well as we should have.
Flow.
Yeah, cash flow is so key. So, now we're all about just doing it as efficiently as possible. And we don't slot on people until we know, like, one, like this is really a true need. And 2, it's going to, result in X, Y, Z implications to the company, like either immediately or in the long term, and how that affects it. And then, like, are they the best? And so we've really been cautious to not bring on full-time employees because we're working with a lot of contractors. So there's like upwards of 30 contractors at this point.
Wow.
And so it allows you to be cash flow efficient, and it allows you to figure out like who's really good at this topic and what does greatness really look like. And that was something that as a young founder, I think like I struggle with this. It's like, what does a really good operations person look like? What does a really good e-com person look like? What does a really good salesman look like? And there's all these different levels. And when you're just starting, it's like, I'd never worked in a company, so you don't have any experience. So you're just like, you have to go through the, kind of the ringer to figure out like who's great, and how do you find those people? And then, how do you pay them a great salary and, all that stuff. So now it's like the company's super lean and, we're generating a ton of cash. And so it's like, we're in that position where we're almost ready to pull someone back in. But yeah, it's just it's a delicate experience.
How do you think you would be able to find that person through just like, is it just an interview that is going to tell all the answers? Because I feel like so many times it's such a like, people are just trying to sell themselves in that interview almost,
I know. So yeah, there's a lot of issues with that. There's a really good book called The Who on Hiring. Yeah, so I would highly recommend reading that book, but the best people come from, typically referrals. And the best method of referral I found is take the person that that's the best at operations and ask that guy or girl, hey, who do you think is the best at operations for startups that are in food and beverage between, 10 million and 50 million? And then you go and that person's going to be, oh man, this guy is so good, and they're not going to bullshit you about, the resume or try to sell you because, your relationship with them. So they want to be right.
Yeah.
And then you go and you find that person. But it's definitely not posting on LinkedIn or getting it out on Indeed to a massive job site. Like, if you want to find the best, like you got to work with a recruiter or it's an intimate referral in your existing network.
Yeah. Yeah, that's got to be definitely quite a bit of a process to finding the right people. And if I've learned anything with just seeing the transition from I was number 23 employee for Liquid IV to the now over 55, 60, and just seeing what it takes to go from there to getting acquired to then scaling, it's like literally every person, whatever their role is, they own it. Like they are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing in the sense of like just really another Gary Vee thing is I always hear him, say is like hire slow, fire fast.
Fast, yep.
And wow, just it really, you can have the greatest product and service in the world, but if you do not have the right team around you to do it at scale and at speed, it's like, one day might not seem like a big deal. Things aren't going according to plan, but day by day, that adds up. Yeah. And that month turns into 2 months to 6 months. And then there's a lot of progress that can be made if people are doing what they're supposed to be doing, there's the structures, there's the right systems in place. And then it just allows people to really get into the rhythm. But from outside looking in, or, not even just actually being in it, that's so fucking key. Is just having that right team.
Critical. Yeah. And I mean, even, it's like don't hire until you need to too. The company's grown so much with just 3 people. It's like,
yeah. I would imagine though, even at that place when you guys you had the 8 people, it's like, if I was in your guys' shoes, I'm seeing growth, we're seeing sales increase. It's like, yeah, let's hire more people so that we can get the sales to keep increasing. And then 2, so that when it continues to grow, we already have the right team in place. So I mean, I feel like every entrepreneur that's young and in their first endeavor, especially with no true work experience in the real world, that would be the first assumption I would make, is like, the more people we have on our team, the faster we're going to keep this thing growing, know? So I guess
it's a good learning lesson though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's gonna set you up for later success. And as you guys continue to rebuild that team, you're gonna know when to bring the people on, and then when not to, and what exactly you need, what characteristics you're gonna be looking for, versus trying to get somebody in there as soon as possible and then realizing this is not the right fit, or this was just way too early.
Exactly.
So it definitely seems like a game. 2018, you guys took a business trip to Japan. Super curious, biggest realizations and takeaways from a trip like that.
Okay, so 2018, I think that was our second trip.
Oh, so you guys have been to Japan multiple times.
Well, yeah. Do you know the story of the first time we went to Japan?
I don't think so. Robbie might have told me, and maybe it's not connecting.
Yeah, this is this is like, this is the secret sauce behind Tenzo.
Here we go.
So when we first started, like I said, we didn't have a ton of money, and so we bought matcha from this guy who was in Arizona, and he was private labeling. So he had a connection in Japan, and then he would buy the matcha and he'd put it into packaging for us and send us finished products. We got 50 of those and we sold them. And we got 100 and 500 and 1,000. And then we were like, man, we don't have the margin we want, and so we need to get this guy out of here. And so then we started buying. We found out who his supplier was.
How'd you find it, though? How'd you find that? Because I feel like the guy you're buying off of in Arizona is going to be really smart.
I recognized. I was doing a ton of research at this point to try and find it, and I found a logo that was on a sample he sent us months before that matched the logo on a website of a Japanese supplier.
Wow.
That was the connection.
Wow.
And yeah, that was like a holy shit moment.
We found.
Yeah, that was a hype. And so then we contacted them, and we contacted a few other, people or manufacturers that were similar to them in Japan. And then we flew out to Japan when we had enough money to actually go. And we went and we explored. And then the magic happened on the last day. We were in the Kyoto train station, and we had nothing to do. We had to get back to Tokyo for our flight out the next morning, and that was pretty much it. So we had a full day to kill. And I Googled tea farms and shops nearby. I was like, oh, there's one. It's like a 30-minute train ride away. Let's go. So we got, we bought the ticket, and hopped on the train and took a 30-minute ride. So then we get there, and it's just a tea shop. That's like the external appearance, and there's like an 80-year-old Japanese couples there. And, we didn't speak Japanese, and they didn't speak any English. So Rob has like a newspaper. He's like pointing at tea fields. I got Siri's out. She's like trying to talk Japanese. And it was a really, really bizarre interaction. And we were like, all right, we're out in like rural Japan now. We might as well just try and walk to like the next farm. So, and there's a lot of farms in Japan. Like, it's not like massive plot farming like in the US and China. It's a lot of small like family plots. So we start walking to the next one. It's like a 20-minute walk. 10 minutes into the walk, a car pulls up, and the driver's side window goes down, and it's the guy from the shop. And he looks at us, and he just gives us like the hand motion, like, come into my car. So like we look at each other like, should we do this? And like when in Rome, right? So we got in the man's car, and there was like literally no words spoken, and we drove to a tea farm.
How far of a drive was this?
Probably 10 minutes.
Okay.
So it's not like a 4-hour drive. It's like getting real sketchy.
Yeah.
But no, it was good, and we got out, and he spoke to the farmer there, and they were like go have at it. And so then we walked all around the farm, took pictures, met some people that were harvesting matcha at the time. So like literally
solely matcha farm. That's all they're growing there.
Yeah.
How does that grow? How do you grow that?
So it's like matcha is a variety of tea. And so the unique part is that it's shade grown for the last 30 or 45 days of the growing cycle. And then Tenzo's handpicked. So we were in the farm, with like these elderly Japanese families just like picking matcha and taking pics, and they're like, Rob's like the tallest person they've ever seen in their life, so they're like, oh, and it was a really cool experience. And then we did that again at another farm, and at another farm, and at another farm, and another farm for like 4 or 5 hours. It was like right out of a Disney movie. Crazy. So we were like, wow, like that was insane. Like what a way to end the trip. And so we get back on the big train. Now we're heading from Kyoto to Tokyo. And we get an email from that old guy's boss. That old guy's boss is a Tea Don. So he runs...
Tea Don.
He's like a big dog.
Whoa.
And the bottom line is that he didn't do any matcha. And, so he was like, hey, like I'm interested in, talking with you guys and seeing, what you're up to. So 6 months go by. We meet him in secret in Las Vegas at the World Tea Convention.
Why in secret? Why?
Because we didn't want to know. This is a secret partnership. You don't want anyone to know the manufacturer. He sells green bag tea, like tons of different types of tea. And he wanted to take on the two big matcha suppliers. And that was really the gist. Basically all the matcha that's in the US came from one of two suppliers. And they supplied every single brand, and every product was one of these two businesses. So our plan was like, all right, and even that guy back in Arizona bought from those two companies. So our plan was like partner up with this guy, create a better product at a better price, and go and win the U.S. market. Mm. So I met him in Vegas, and we agreed to create proprietary blends of matcha, and that eventually became Tenzo Tea, and he's became one of our biggest investors, and we have like a very intimate relationship with this manufacturer in Japan now.
And still do.
Still do, yeah. I'm like
same guy.
I'm great friends with his whole family.
Wow.
His daughter is like Rob and I, like our age,
Wow.
So she's like cool. And every time we go out to dinner with their whole family, like multiple times during the trip,
Wow. So since that relationship, you've only gone back once then? It would have been that, and probably in 2018
2018. And we went back in 2019. And I think Rob and I also went at another time. So these are all for harvest in May, which is coming up. It's unfortunate we can't go this year, but we went back another time to renegotiate pricing too. Because he was like, once you get to 7 figures, you can renegotiate. It's like right when we hit 7 figures, we're like, we're on a plane.
Booking a flight.
Yep. And then we renegotiated that.
Wow, that's so crazy. Just like you guys are literally out there. You go to a local shop. You got the Siri app.
Yeah.
Rob's pointing at the freaking newspaper. You got two tall white Americans just like, what are these guys doing? And then fast forward, it leads to your business partner. The guy who's literally supplying you guys the actual product, which is, it's just amazing how following your guys' gut, following your intuition, like we need to find the source, ends up actually leading you right to the person you need to build that relationship with.
Yeah, I was incredibly lucky.
Is there anything like, I'm just so curious because I've only been outside the country maybe 2 or 3 times, and that's been to the Bahamas twice and to Mexico. So it's, these are vacation trips, but even on the multiple trips that you have been to Japan, how does that impact you outside of like, you're there for business, you're there to negotiate? Like, yeah. Are there anything that like when you're coming back to the States that it's like, you see differently, like whether it's the way people interact or the way the culture is? Like, what are some of the quick things that just have impacted you and just the way you live your life?
First of all, like I love Japanese culture a lot, and they are a lot different than the U.S. And by far the biggest thing is that they have a culture of mutual respect, and the U.S. has a culture of individualism and opportunism. So in the U.S., people will jaywalk, people will litter. My trash doesn't matter. We have rampant homelessness. In Japan, people will take care of each other. There's no homelessness. I've never seen a homeless person in Japan. They do not litter at all. You'll never find a cigarette butt, a beer can, a Coke bottle, anything. It doesn't exist. People don't jaywalk, and everyone is very, very respectful. It's, and the essence is like, it comes back to that collective respect. People look after each other, and they care for people that instead of being homeless, they'll, take care of them. They'll live with their family. They'll do whatever they can to support them.
Wow.
So, I mean, that was a really eye-opening experience for me, because I hadn't been, out of the country at all. I've been to Mexico, but yeah. That was it. I think that's a really powerful way to live. And I think that, a lot of, Western cultures could take note, and especially it's very eye opening just being in Venice and seeing, what goes on around here. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And it's very positive to note that there's countries where that doesn't exist. And there is an answer to the problems that, are literally on our blocks and doorsteps.
Yeah. Yeah. It is kind of crazy living on this side of town and seeing that every day. Like I see it every morning on my run, and it's so already. I've only been living in Venice for 3 months, but just living in LA for the last 3 years, it's normalized to me, where it's like, I don't want to say it doesn't faze me, but it's like, I'm not as surprised as when I first got here. And I was like,
yep.
Wow, driving through Tent City in downtown LA, I was like, this is unreal. Like, this is like a real thing. But, just seeing it is like, how do we solve this issue? What are the steps? Is it even possible? I think even just the littering aspect of what you're just talking about is so mind-boggling to me because, I was driving back from yoga last Saturday with Dan, and it's like 10 a.m. We're hopping on the highway, and there's this guy driving a Tesla, and he just flicks his cigarette butt out the window, and I don't get heated usually. For some reason, just seeing this guy, I want it to be like, you're driving a car that does help the world. It's definitely making an impact, but yet you're still going to throw that burning cigarette butt out and just like toss it on and it just like made me just furious inside. Like if it was just somebody driving like a Honda, I probably wouldn't have been so ticked off. But I'm like, you're clearly aware of how that car is impacting the world. Why are you just tossing this? So I guess all that to say, it's like, I don't know what the steps are to make that change.
That's an example of like I over we. And that guy's prioritizing, his convenience and time over the rest of us.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
Yeah.
We need people thinking collectively.
Yeah.
Littering, you should never litter. What is the point of it?
I don't understand.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, I don't understand it. And even at the most basic level, I don't expect any single person to change the world, but I think we all have the ability to make a small impact, and that if everybody stepped up and did that, it would ripple effect.
Totally.
So I can't control that guy that threw out the cigarette bud, but I can control how I live my life. I don't litter. I recycle. I don't, I drive a hybrid right now. I can't wait to then get to the next thing and actually drive an all electric. Like I can only control my own decision making, which I know is impacting somewhat, very small scale, but it is helping somewhat. So even then, when I see things like that, I almost weirdly have empathy for people like that, because I go, that's somebody that just, whether it was the environment they were raised in or they're just solely a product of their own environment. Like, I don't even think they consciously understand what they're doing. So I try to have empathy for them, but at the same time, I just go, I can only control what I can control, and hopefully that will ripple effect and positively help other people to do the same.
Yep. That's why we're on the pod, baby. For everyone listening, let's go. Make one small change.
One small change.
We are all like, that goes back to my point earlier about smiling at a stranger. It's like,
yeah,
those small things really do add up.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. And you know what's crazy is when you start to really just become, and this is going to sound woo-woo for people out there, when you actually like start to just solely be present in your life and you're not thinking about the past and you're not thinking about the future, it actually fires you up when you can do those little moments. Like yesterday I was, coming back from a run. There was a guy walking his dog and I said good morning, and he kind of was like caught off guard that I had even said good morning to him, because most people just pass each other and they don't say a word to each other and they just act like they didn't just walk by a human being. And he's like, oh yeah, good morning. Yeah. And he like smiled and like,
yeah, I love
was like
that.
Cool. And I was like, it's little things like that. Or, I see a cute girl with a cute dog, and of course I'm like, cute dog, but you're also cute. And she's like, eh.
Yep.
So it's little moments like that where it's like, how can I not only, I can do my role to change the world for the better, but how can I uplift people? How can I be that random moment in that person's day where at the end of the day they go, yeah, I had a good day, but like it was something about that person like smiled at me, or like I'll never know how that impacted them, but I hope that it was something positive that then they ripple effect to somebody else,
Exactly.
So
it's like those MasterCard commercials like back in the day where like you do one thing and then it shows the clip of the person who's just affected by that and they impact butterfly effect.
And it just keeps going. I love
totally.
that. Big fan of that. Big fan of that. What are, from your experience, and I know you do a lot of reading and a lot of studying, what would you say are 3 defining characteristics of a great CEO?
I think there's one really obvious one that'll take 1 out of the 3 is like a really good understanding of business and the ability to manipulate, financial models and drive sales and things like that. And then, the other 2 are, probably more important than the first one, which are, finding and motivating a really good team. So it's like we talked a little bit earlier about building a team. It's like, you want someone that's going to inspire you every day. It's like, I've heard you talk about BC, win the morning, win the day, and it's like, I think like having that presence and showing up, it's like in a meeting, you're like, let's go. And, you're right there, you're present, you're alert. The team knows the deliverables, it's all set. And at the end, you're like, how can I support you? I believe in you. I'm here for you, like those kind of things.
Yeah.
And so you got that mission. And then I think it's like also just setting the bigger vision for the company and the goals too.
Yeah.
And so it's like, can you not only inspire your team, but can you build up a tribe or a cult following beyond that?
Yeah. Yeah. The people's person, how can you make other people feel good? And how can you make them feel like they're part of something bigger, which then is just going to allow them to operate and really love what they do and know that it's helping in a bigger picture. Because it is, as companies grow and scale, it's like it's harder to really see in real time how your decision making or your work is impacting the bigger picture. But if you have a leader up top that's reminding you daily, or that is, pushing that positive and optimistic energy across everybody on the team, it carries people and it makes them feel purposeful and makes them feel like, wow, my role, regardless of what it is, regardless if it's in finance, operations, marketing,
customer service, anything that's small, it really matters.
Yeah.
Even at the warehouse, it's like, how are you packaging this box?
Yeah.
Because that matters, because that's going to impact our customers' first impression of us.
Yeah.
It's going to impact how they tell their friends.
Totally.
All these things.
Yeah. It's a ripple effect for that too as well.
Yeah.
What helps you stay focused on what's in front of you in a day? Because there's a million things that always need to get done. There's always, where we need to be in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. We have this rolling out in 3 months, or, there's always these things in the future, but how do you stay focused on what's in front of you today?
Prioritize. I bet you we do something pretty similar here, but I have a running list. I keep this in Notion. And I have all the tasks I'm responsible for, and then I have all the tasks that I'm waiting on other people for. It's all categorized, and what's like what I told you, like, hey Bob, I need this, placement by Friday. Mm-hmm. I need that because of this reason. So I have all those things logged, and I have due dates attached to them all, and then I assign priority levels to them all. So I call it $10, $100, $1,000, or $10,000, and then I also have urgent and important. So it's kind of like a blend between the Eisenhower matrix between like important and urgent, and then you have non-important, non-urgent, get rid of that task. And so I blend that with, value. Because, a lot of times in startups, some things are really valuable, and like one action, if you can get 10% better out of your marketing efforts, 10% more efficient, that's going to spiral into like this massive number of sales. If you can close Costco, that's going to spiral into $50 million in revenue. So those are like the 10K, I call those 10K buckets, where it's like 1 hour of my time is going to make us $10,000 in value.
Yeah.
It's that exponential effect. Yeah. And then I just prioritize every single morning. It's the first thing I do is I go through every single task. I follow up with everyone that I need to make sure everyone knows what's going on. And then I work through my tasks based on the priority level and the value level.
Wow. You've gotten this dialed in then. I do the same thing. I keep a running to-do list and I just reorganize like what do I know is pressing and what can kind of wait. But to be able to break it down into values really puts everything into perspective. Like, this actually can wait. This can wait to the end of the week. This also can get pushed to next week because I have these other tasks that clearly bigger value, more dollar signs, which means that I probably should be putting more time and effort to them because they're going to move the needle. Exactly. The other stuff is going to keep me busy for hours and hours, but it's not going to move the needle. It's not going to make a substantial change in what we're doing here. But those items, even if it's one big item for the week versus 10 smaller ones, that's going to completely move the needle versus all these other, miniature tasks and whatnot.
Totally. And I mean, I think that's a really, really critical lesson for everyone in any possible role.
Yeah.
You want to move the needle. So you got to know what does that, and I really hate doing busy work too. Like I'll often just like delegate it or just not do it if it's that not important.
You should. I mean, at some point as a CEO, that's what's going to happen is you get to the place where you don't do the busy work. The busy work is passed on to somebody that can do that for you so that you can focus on the bigger picture, higher level type thinking, material things like, even when we were still in office before we went remote and a lot of the content stuff we were doing, I had to pitch weekly to our content team. What should because we were trying to build out like a BTS team. And so I had access to Brandon's calendar. So I'd see like what his week looked like and like the meetings he was having. And I was just like, people don't even realize like,
I know the meetings
you compartmentalize though, like, and one day he's going from a finance meeting to a marketing to then product 3-year outlook to then, Costco meeting. It's like, this is unbelievable, but it's the higher level thinking though. He's not focused on the finance issue from today or the marketing issue we got inbounded. No. There's the team that's implementing that. What is he there to do? He's there to think the bigger picture items and steer the ship. So I always thought that was really interesting to see where, you get to that place as a CEO, as a founder, you put in, the years of work where you were once the one that was doing it. And then now you're the delegator where you're then able to just operate from such a higher level because all you're doing is surveying the land and where are we supposed to be going.
Yep.
And it just puts you into that sweet spot.
Totally. Like a good analogy I heard the other week on Twitter is like you're like a router at some point. So you get all this information that comes in and it's always about just like sending it out. Wholesale lead comes in, that goes to sales, customer service has their thing, marketing has their thing, legal has their thing, finance has their thing. And then like I think a lot of my ability, like a key characteristic is just being really fast. So like I know you and Rob talked about this too, but like you can Slack me or email me at like any time of day, and like I'm gonna read it and it's gonna get sent to the right person like ASAP Rocky.
Yeah.
And I think it comes like you really like good founders I think have a really high bias towards action. That's like a phrase I hear a lot. And it's like you need to be acting.
Yeah.
And that's why like, the gas is always on, baby.
Yeah, I know. There's been a couple of like me and Robbie, we were up in his room in the we call it the Tenzo HQ, and it'll be like 3 p.m. on a Saturday, and he'll have his Slack. I'm like, yo, is Steve in the green right now? He's like, yep. I was like, this man does not stop.
Yeah, you just got to keep it on. And I do think there is a lot of value in like spending quiet time and like reading and meditating and taking away from it too. But speed is critical.
Yeah. And the thing is when you love what you do, you're not worried about clocking in the hours because there's nothing else you'd rather be doing.
I know.
Like it's Saturday, 11:36 a.m. right now, and there's no other place in this world I'd rather be than sitting across from you having this podcast.
I know.
It doesn't matter if it's Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday. There's a switch that I think we both have. We've felt and it happened in our lives. And truthfully, it's actually really scary when you think about it because a large portion of this world may never have that flip of a switch, but there's a moment in your life when you find the right thing of what you're supposed to be doing and you're able to get to that place and you're actually doing it where you get into this thing called flow. And time of day does not matter because you're just in the moment. You're so all in that it does not matter what day of the week it is or what time of day it is because you're just in it. You love it. And that's what happens like yourself on that Saturday when I'm like, yo, is Steve on? Yep, of course. Of course you're on. Because you're in your flow. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're always on.
I could not agree more. I mean, I think that was a really interesting, that was like, you summed it up perfectly. Like when I first started Tenzo, like every day of the week, it just blended. Yeah. There's no more Saturday or Sunday.
No.
There's no more Friday night.
Yeah. There was a really good soundbite that Dave Portnoy of Barstool Sports.
Yeah,
a lot of the content he pushed out, I love and respect him, coming from Massachusetts. With what he built with Barstool. But a lot of shit he pushed, obviously, it's just like the gambling, the bullshit, whatever.
Yep.
There was a really, really good soundbite probably 2 months ago that went viral on his TikTok that I actually, like, I love because it was more of the motivational shit.
Yep.
And that's what he talked about. Is he said, I wish nothing more than for people to find that moment, because he said it does not matter to me if it's Tuesday or Saturday. I wake up every day and I love what I do, and I hope that all of you can find that thing. Because he said, I can't wait for the Friday. I can't wait for it to not be Monday. It's all the same. And so I just think it's a super, outside looking in, people are like, wow, this person always wants to work, always hustling, always grinding. But it's like, but they love it. There's nothing else they'd rather be doing.
It's like my greatest joy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. That's a really good thing when you can find that sweet spot. And then of course have the balance, and whether it's the meditation, the yoga, the stillness,
Yeah, and I mean, I would encourage everyone, everyone listening, to not stop searching until you find it.
Yeah.
It's like, I always say like YOLO, but it applies so well. It's not like this corny expression. It's like, we only live once.
That's it.
How could you waste a day doing something you don't love?
Yeah. And here's the other thing, though, to add on that. If you're in that position doing something that you don't love, that's okay. As long as you're aware and you're making an effort to get out of it, enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride of not enjoying what you're doing, because at some point it's going to change. I went through that experience. There were days that I didn't want to drive Uber, but I kept telling myself at some point it's going to change.
Yeah, but you were working hard as a mother to get out of that, though.
Very much so. But I want people to understand that you can make that switch. It is possible if you're willing to put in the work. Yep. If you wake up every day and you don't enjoy what you do, that's okay. You can make that switch, but it's going to take that little bit of work every single day to get out of it. I just think there's a lot of times that people get into that position. They hate what they do. They dread it, but then there's no action. They complain about it. Friday comes, they forget about it for the weekend. Monday, they dread it. Thursday comes again, they forget about it. It's like this never-ending cycle.
Yep.
Never-ending cycle.
You got to put some sacrifice in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Uber. It's, I didn't have any, I ate potatoes for months. It's like, you want to get somewhere, you got to be willing to do what it takes.
Totally. Once upon a time ago, you run into Jeff Bezos in Santa Monica. You chat with him. And I love that after chatting with him, you decide to run back to your apartment. You grab Tenzo products. And then you're literally running through Santa Monica trying to hunt this man down, because he's not where he was where he clearly left him. And then you end up finding him and you give him the Tenzo product. But what is your thought process on doing that when most people wouldn't? Most people would be like, oh, wow, Jeff Bezos, and they would have just kept walking. Maybe CEO and other founders out there. But you said there, and I would believe there was not a split-second decision of you going, should I go back? Should I not? No, I feel like you just are like, oh, yeah, there's no other option. I got to go back, get this product, and find him and hunt him down. So as that happened, what was that thought process of like, I need to go get some product and I need to get it to this man right now?
Well, actually, I met him the first time and I was like...
Oh, multiple times. You're multiple friends with...
Bezos, yeah. So I met him the first time and I was like, wow, like, this is an amazing thing that just happened. Like, this is fucking destiny. Like, I'm on the path.
Was this one in Santa Monica?
In Santa Monica,
okay.
And so then I called Rob. And it was actually, I got to give credit to the big man on this one. Wow. Rob was like so unimpressed and did not care at all. And he was just like...
Unimpressed by what?
That I just met Jeff Bezos. That I even like saw him, went up to him and said hi and had a little convo with him. He just was, great. You get any money? Tenzo, doing good? And I was like really off put on the phone. And he was just, and then I was like, I gotta fucking do something about this. And so then I like kicked into gear and I was just
the gas came on.
Ultra scheming, like hopped on a jump biked like 3 miles to my office.
Wow.
And I didn't want to give him just products. So the kicker was I wrote a letter. Because like a lot of people get products, like, especially if you're like Jeff Bezos, like I'm sure you get some really fancy gifts. But what I wrote with him was like, I talked about the regret minimization framework.
That he had talked about, right?
That he had talked about, and I knew this. I also had read his book. So, I told him that I read your book, and I dropped out of school, and I'm starting this company, and, I live my life by this. Like, maximize impact. This is a core tenet of my life. Maximize impact, minimize regret. And I told him that in the letter, and I, said a bunch of other stuff, and I wrote down my email and phone number. Then now I'm on the hunt. Like, can I find this man? And I eventually did, and I got to have a longer conversation with him.
Wow.
And I think he really liked it. It was very cool thing. And then he emailed me a bunch of times, and that's spiraled from there.
Wow. Yeah, respect to you, man. To do that, to be willing to. I'm the same type of person where it's like if I see an opportunity, I'm gonna introduce myself. I'm not afraid, to go out and reach my hand out and try to introduce myself to somebody. But to then go back and shout out to Robbie for shooting you down like that.
I know, right? Classic.
Put in the fire.
That's the balancing
act, Yeah, that's classic. Kind of along that same lines, and I think we had talked about it right before we got into the podcast, and I was like, perfect, because we're going to talk about this in the podcast. But you're somebody that's really good at cold email and reach outs.
Yeah.
And I know you've gotten, I think one of the most people, or somebody that I talked about with Robbie was the previous CEO of Disney.
Yeah, Bob Iger.
Yeah, you had reached out to him, got an email back. So I'm just curious, what is your advice for people that are trying to go about that and want to cold email somebody, send the right DM? Is there a tactic, tip of advice?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's a very case-by-case situation, and for getting the actual email or DM down right. But no, my first major important thing is, like, you got to shoot your shot, boys, like, and girls. Like, everyone's on email. Everyone is on DMs. Everyone is on social. Everyone's on the computer. So you got to shoot your shot. Like, why I started doing this was because Steve Jobs, like, met the CEO of Hewlett Packard when he was, like, 12 years old. And that, like, spiraled into this really long, successful career, obviously building Apple.
Wow.
But it all started when he's really young. He called him on a payphone. Found his number in the freaking phone book, and most people just don't shoot the shots. It's like they complain about where they are in life, but they're not in the gym shooting. It's like point number one is go shoot your shots. And then, secondly, the email template is actually, highly scripted, and I send almost the exact same cold email to every single person at this point. It's like introduction, one sentence that's like, here's who I am. Here's another sentence showing some very specific, insight into the other person's life, that I know about or have seen, yada, yada, yada. And then an extremely concise, clear call to action. Because, like, typically I'm not cold emailing to, like, give them something right away, which is another thing. It's like, we talked about that too, like, right before. Like, you always want to give value. And it's like, in my situation, I was just, like, sending them a complimentary note. And, like, for the Bob Iger one, I asked, like, what books would you recommend for someone in my situation? He sent back books. I also talked with, like, the founder, or not the founder, but one of the managing partners at Sequoia Capital, Michael Moritz, and he's like a multi-billionaire guy, and similar template. And I just asked him, if, like, he's interested in investing in Tenzo, and he was like, no, but, but then we had, like, this 10 email dialogue between, like, 5:30 and 6 a.m. one morning, and he's just emailing me back in 1 minute, and I'm just responding in 1 minute, and it's like, da-da-da-da-da. And, but yeah, then he eventually introduced me to, like, a bunch of people that had become, like, really good introductions,
Wow.
But yeah, just keep it concise, keep it clear. Don't ask for too much. Like, if you're asking for anything, be really specific and make sure it's something that they can actually help you with. Anytime you try to stray to go too long or make it too weird or don't have a clear proposition or the proposition isn't right for the other person, then it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So
yeah, shoot your shot is definitely that first step, and then after that, I think like you were just explaining, literally making every word count. And being very mindful of people's times and knowing that when they click into this email, if there is a 5-paragraph essay, they're going to immediately click out because it's intimidating. They don't have the time to try to decipher this beautifully written essay, which I'm sure is very thoughtful, but to grab their attention, like you're saying, it's got to be right to the point, and you literally got to make every single word count. Yeah,
and it's got to be thoughtful too. It's like, you can't ask for someone, especially from someone that's, like, really high caliber. It's like they're coming from a much different perspective than you are. Like if they can figure out a better solution to the thing you're asking for, then they're going to just not respond. And like you clearly have more thought to do on the topic.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
so
you're asking questions that you can't just Google.
No, you cannot. No. Yeah, definitely not a Google question.
Yeah.
You should already have Googled like 500 times. Like you've already thought through this, talked to like 20 other people about it.
Yeah.
It's like something that it's uniquely complex, and they are the perspective that can solve that problem.
Yeah. Sheesh, man, that's good. I definitely learned that game through podcasting and outreach and cold emails to people, but I'm a big believer of literally shooting your shot. And once you take a couple of those first shots, it then becomes repetition. You realize YOLO, you have literally nothing to lose and everything to gain. And you just have to keep doing it and consistently. And at some point, the right people start answering and you learn along the way. And you never know how some of these relationships can full circle too, which is really, really cool to kind of see at some point where,
Totally.
hey, maybe Jeff reaches out to you in 6 months and is like, hey, we need Tenzo at every single Amazon HQ. Can you guys handle that capacity? Sure.
Heck yeah. Yep, I know.
We'll get that in. We'll get that shipped inbound.
But a good tip for people that are listening would be to email the author of the book you just read. Take a specific insight from the book and email them that specific insight that you liked and changed your life. Very, very good one. Because authors love hearing from fans. You make it personable, and you're right there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, even like Bob.
That's what I did for Bob. I've done that a bunch of times. I mean, like that's like probably the best like simple secret that I just said.
Yeah.
Take the author.
Yeah.
Shane Parrish, who wrote the Great Mental Models, he responded right away. James Clear responded. A bunch of people.
Yeah, if you're taking the time to read their actual material and show specific detail to examples or like quotes, they're gonna feel excited to respond to you because you're somebody that's reading their actual their content.
Yep.
You're wearing a Seek Discomfort sweater, so it's making me have to ask how has seeking discomfort in your own life gotten you to where you are today?
Oh my gosh, so many ways. I mean, as an athlete training, being the first in the gym, being early and staying late, like in the literal gym, pushing your body to do things that you don't think you can. To read books that are harder for me, or I thought at the time were going to be too hard. To dropping out of school. So many ways.
Yeah.
To cold emailing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like every damn day you got to wake up and go to the next level. And like, I think that is it's like another one of those snowball effects. It's like a self-propelling thing. Eventually you just become so good at living in this state of constant discomfort. That's all you want to be in. I don't want to be in this like safe environment where everything's, the same and it's comfortable and I'm content. That's not how I want to live. It's like I want to be constantly pushing myself, doing harder and more difficult things, mentally and physically and emotionally and spiritually and every aspect of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think at some point it does become that lifestyle.
It's literally who I am, dude.
I start like getting paranoid and like almost like I'm like, what am I doing wrong when the day is too slow or like if there's not anything on the to-do list. I'm like, there's good to have days. Usually Saturday's my day. Or I'll pick one day on the weekend where I go shut it down, don't work, and just enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
But of course, there's always exceptions here and there. But other than that, it's like they're if I'm not working on the next thing. What am I doing? Something's wrong. There's more room. There's always something else that needs to get done. There's always room for improvement.
Totally. Like literally what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
So it's like you want to have really difficult challenges constantly.
Yeah.
And then as long as they're non-terminal, meaning like you literally don't die or like kill your company or say something bad and the podcast gets canceled, anything besides that is making you tougher and smarter and stronger.
Yeah.
You get a period of brief recovery and after that, and boom.
Yeah.
That's how you become an anti-fragile motherfucker.
Yeah. And then you're ready. Then you're real dialed in.
Oh, yeah.
Quick cues and then we'll wrap up. What are daily routines that help you operate at your highest level?
I write and read in the morning, every single morning. That's actually the only thing that comes before my to-do list.
Wow. And when you're writing, is it like a journaling or what are you writing?
Journaling.
Just personal thoughts.
Personal journaling. And then, I also review the journal that I wrote the day before. That's an Alexander Hamilton technique. And I'm not as good about this as I want to, but I try to speak it out loud as well. There's a next level of retention beyond just rereading, and that's based on this psychological principle called spacing. It's like typically the memory curve is a decreasing slope over time. So if you put in a refresh, or it's like flashcards, like, you see it in 1 minute, you're going to remember that thing. If I told you my favorite color is blue, you're going to remember in 1 minute. In 10 minutes, you might forget. In 5 days, you're not going to remember my favorite color is blue. But if you put in that extra step of like reinforcing, then your memory gets much better. You can adapt and learn a lot more things faster and retain them for longer. So I really like reading in the morning, and I really like journaling and reviewing my past journals.
It's good. Sets some momentum for the day too.
Yeah.
Good. Gets you grounded, allows you to clear your thoughts, and then go into the to-do list and then get into the workflow.
Yeah. I think another simple, super underrated one for a lot of people is just making your bed.
Every day.
Every damn day I'm making my bed.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's a whole book about this. It's just like, it's literally called Make Your Bed, I think.
Yeah.
And, it also reminds me of another book called Willpower. And it's like one action spirals. So you got to win.
Domino effect.
Yeah. It's a domino effect of excellence over a whole day.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big believer of that. Small wins, baby. Small wins. How do you create, and I know you had mentioned this, I had sent you the link to that Arnold video.
Yeah.
That I sent to Robbie. I don't go looking for those videos. Somebody had sent it to me and I actually watched. It's like, oh, this is pretty dope. So I sent it to you, and I honestly loved how you had said something along the lines that you find ways to create the motivation within you. So how do you do that instead of seeking external inspiration?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say at this point, I definitely don't watch. In high school, I used to like watch motivational videos and that kind of thing, and I like get pumped up, but I feel like I'm just completely surrounded in the environment of that at this point. My friends are all this way. My girlfriend, building a company. It's like that has just like become so much of who I am that it's more about like my inner drive, and it's there. It's like a fucking raging volcano inside of me, and I don't need anyone else. I can barely keep up with my own self, and it's like, yeah. And my good buddy Matt, he always says like, oh, you're gonna, like, we talk about like movies or books. He's like, you're just gonna read that book. I'm like, you're not gonna sleep for fucking weeks, and I'm just like, oh my god, and it does happen. It's just like when I do something like that, it's too much. Yeah. It's like I already have it. That is who I am.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time, like years, cultivating that.
That's the key.
But it's like, and once you do that, I feel like you think Michael Jordan's watching freaking a pump-up video on like Julius Erving before his games? No, he's going out. He's MJ.
Yeah, he's creating that within him.
Yeah, it's
a skill.
It's who he is, and I think that's more important to me. I don't like getting distracted by those one-off things because it causes these waves. Like
it's like a roller coaster.
Yeah, I want to be on. Like I'm just always on.
Yeah,
I'm never off.
Yeah,
that's who I am.
Yeah. Like you said, though, it was cultivated over years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's good.
It takes time, but once you get in that space, it becomes...
You're unstoppable.
It's who you are. Yeah. It's not a time.
Yeah, it's always.
Always.
I love that. You mentioned many books on this podcast. One specific book and one podcast that you would recommend those out there listening to check out?
Books are tough.
Because I guess it always depends on like the headspace and where you're at in your life.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I would say that there's a few books that have really impacted me, like in critical ways. And the latest one was Atlas Shrugged. I absolutely love the book. It is so good and so powerful, and it gets a lot of flack for political and philosophical commentary, but yeah, it's really good. The characters are fantastic. They tell you, the really deep introspections into life and money and building things and even love. So I think if you're like an adult that's, building or doing something, then you should go and read that book. It's 1,000 pages, so maybe listen to it too.
That's pretty good. That's pretty lengthy.
Maybe 1,400 pages actually.
Any podcast specifically? Any show?
I like the All In Pod.
I've heard great things. Haven't checked it out yet.
Yeah, it's really good. I think they have a super good relationship, and then I always find myself learning something new.
Cool. All in podcast.
It's like they talk about a ton of things, tech and VC and startups and, also, what's going on in society and commentary on politics and things like that.
Oh, that's cool.
And yeah, highly recommend it. Also, The Bearded Man.
Oh, let's go.
Hey.
Let's go. Area of your life you need to put more effort into?
Family.
Yeah.
I think I made the classic mistake of just kind of neglecting them for a little bit. I went through when I dropped out of school, it was kind of that weird tension period, but I just didn't go home very much, and my family's in Rochester, New York, and I think I missed that time and kind of squandered that a little bit. And I wish I could redo that. So I'm trying to go back every 3 months now, and I've been spending a lot. My brother lives in Long Beach. He's got 3 kids. My goddaughter.
Wow.
So this year I've been really focused on going down there once a month and spending a day with them and bringing a present for their kids and or giving them a $2 bill or all those little things. So yeah, I think that's really important. And I definitely don't want to be. Well, I want to be always on and working hard and things like that. Family is really important, and it literally will help you live longer.
Yeah.
It's proven.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely tough finding that balance, but I think it's just an always work in progress type of thing. As long as you're aware of the area that you want to put more effort into, then it's just making better decision making that's going to obviously put that effort into it.
Yeah, prioritize.
First step anybody can take to reaching their inner potential.
Right, open up a Google Doc. At the top of Google Doc, say, who am I? Who is Steve Odell? And then write. And then you'll figure out who you are in enough time. And then when you come into life, you're going to come into all these situations. Should I work a little bit harder today? Should I do 75 hard? Should I pick up another book? Should I go to this party? Should I get blacked out? And when you come to those moments, reference your doc and reference who you are and your values. And as you go through life, you'll find that soon you will become exactly what you wrote in that doc. And people will think of you as the person you wrote in that doc, who you want to be. So define who you are and act on it every single day and every moment.
Yeah, that's good. It's almost like the blueprint. You always go back to it.
Yeah.
That's
you
good.
Always reference it.
Yeah. Anytime you're faced with a decision, go back to it. That's
Yeah.
good. Now, at the end of every podcast, I always allow the guests to put a challenge out there to anybody that's listened to this entire podcast that made it this far into the podcast. What's one challenge that you have for the listeners today?
I would say go and read one of the books I mentioned on this podcast. Thus Spoke Zarathustra, The Alchemist, Alice Shrugged. Pick them up and read them.
Yeah.
Those books are... The Alchemist is a little bit lighter, but Thus Spoke Zarathustra...
That's a good starter book, though, I feel like. That's the book you should... I need to reread now that I'm thinking about it. I've read that book every 2 to 3 years, and it hits different every single time.
Yeah, so read it. But the other two are serious quests. You can't just scroll into Thus Spoke Zarathustra and know everything. That's one of the parts about it that's most challenging.
Yeah.
So you actually have to understand it for yourself. And that is the point of the whole book.
Wow. Yeah, I'll have all those books linked up in the description for those that want to check them out. Definitely a lot of good potential opportunities from Steve as he listed them today. Steve, as we wrap up, man, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, outside looking in, I see you as somebody that is just extremely driven, hardworking, passionate, wakes up every single day with a sense of purpose. You're the exact type of guest that I try to bring onto this podcast, because ultimately what I want for this podcast to be is a place that people can click into, regardless if it's the solo pods or it's the guest pods, and realize that we all are on this quest of becoming the greatest versions of ourselves. And I think you're a great example of that. I love seeing what you and Robbie have built with Tenzo over the years. I mean, that's how I met Robbie in 2018, was when we first did the podcast on Purpose in the Youth. But just seeing the growth, seeing how passionate you guys are, and just seeing where I know this brand is going to go, it fires me up, and I can't wait to see you guys continue to succeed. I'll be rooting for you guys every step of the way. But at the end of the day, regardless of the business, you as a person, nothing but respect, nothing but love. And I feel very fortunate to know you. And I appreciate you taking the time to be on this podcast today. I think people are going to really enjoy listening to this episode.
I appreciate it, Bobby. You're the man. Thank you for the kind words. And, I think nothing less of you. Same thing.
Appreciate that.
You know, we're gonna be homies till the day we
we're
die.
just getting started. Now that I live on the west side, we're starting to see each other more.
I know.
We're just getting started, baby.
Yeah.
If you guys and gals enjoyed this podcast, please screenshot this episode, post it to your IG story, tag Steve. He's at So Delicious, which I love.
Yeah,
that is a great IG handle. At So Delicious, and tag me at Babe. That's BO, 3 B's, 4 A's, and a Y. Share out the podcast on your IG story and let us know what you thought of this episode. You can also check out Tenzo Tea, which is at Tenzo Tea, and the website is tenzotea.co.
Correct.
tenzotea.co. Highly recommend checking out the products. You guys and gals will not be disappointed. It is Bearded Man approved, and I'm not getting paid to say it. I promise you. Steve, thanks for taking the time today, and we'll be chatting again sometime soon on another podcast.
Sounds good, baby.
Thanks for tuning in. It's the Bearded Man Podcast. See ya.